It was Thursday, I believe, January 14th, right, that TikTok was banned. Strange that this is such a notable part of our modern history because it only occurred for 14 hours. I was never a big TikTok fan. I say like I was never a big TikTok fan, like I was any type of fan at all. I was one of the people that resented TikTok because it wasn't my preferred addictive video platform. I was always a YouTube guy. And invariably, sometimes I would go on Instagram because it had funny stuff on there. But TikTok always seemed insane. Much like shorts are on YouTube, because it is kind of the most pure expression of the decline of focus that we have. It seems like stories, like fake things that happen, or things that are like, oh cool, he did that or she did that back in the 20th century, when you find out about protests or you find out about big events, like when Bob Dylan went into the folk festival and played electric instruments and everybody's like, no, my ears. And now we have like punk concerts because he did that, I guess. People would give public speeches and that would actually be a platform to change minds. Now, I refuse to believe that any speech ever really changed a mind. If anything, somebody who was already open to that idea was just becoming more aware of it, but I don't think it ever changed a mind of anybody who was really against them. But at least we were doing something. Everything seems like it's online now, and even though our minds tell us that anything progressing forward is just the right way to go, like, hey, if you want to reach people now, you got to do it online because that's how the world works. We can't go back to something that you find to be more significant because this is our significance now. And TikTok is the soapbox. I'm not going to explain that. It's pretty self-explanatory. Now we have edits that people I know were rapidly saving to their phone. They got like 800 of these edits in a folder on their phone from TikTok because it was going to be banned forever. Because these edits encapsulate the significance of something, or at least they're funny for that sort of thing. If you watch a show that means something deeply to you and then people understand that, they're going to make an edit of it, not because they are explaining the passion you feel in your heart for that piece of media, but it's because they too get it, and so they are able to communicate that to you, not in an informative way, but in an intuitive way. And I don't immediately disagree with the intuitive concept of that, because I think some of the best art comes from intuition, and being able to have half of it happening back here in your mind while the other half is guiding you on the screen, or through the music. But even our music, it is all centered around the individual, because maybe it is because we're all kind of knowingly living in our own space online and just kind of conferring with these groups because we're supposed to. But I don't know. It seems like in the 20th century, you needed these people to be on your side for something to happen. Or if you were alone, you were making statements that just made sense to yourself. I don't really know what I'm trying to say. Our form of communication, the one that we claim to be our generation's form of communication, was taken away, and my problem is not purely that it was taken away. It is a violation, but the problem is that what we had was so completely entangled with a company or an institution. The fact that that could just be ripped away because of an ideological standpoint. And we cannot pretend here that TikTok was not ripped away for an ideological standpoint and that it was done for some sort of national security. There is no security in the internet age. We are all having our information taken at every second to a point where we can't even be afraid of it anymore, because It's nothing. It is just what we are. And the horror that is supposed to be felt by us is that, oh no, another country that we have major conflict with, or like some kind of covert conflict with, is going to have our information. And they are going to do with it what they please, because they are the bads. I mean, I think it's pretty common knowledge now that propaganda is communicated on all fronts of everywhere. I mean, we have Twitch streamers talking about how they're propagandists and how they don't need to worry about the exact truth or the exact correct claims of things, because as long as they guide the breaking news in the right direction of what their ideological standpoint is, then it is okay because they're doing it for some kind of greater good. And that is the same argument they are making for TikTok, that they are taking it away for some kind of greater good. But what was TikTok's value, if not to provide a communicative platform between people? The value, that was its value to us. That's what I want to say. Our value to the people was to communicate between each other. The value to companies is that it has more of your time on their platform, right? You're spending more and more time in there, you get drained, and it's probably, at the end of the day, a soulless waste of your time. And that's kind of to the point I got to. But, I mean, I don't think anybody's any better. Everybody has a vice, especially in the age of video. It is all, every single piece of it, every single morsel of the move that they're trying to make is based on our culture. It is not based on geopolitics. Geopolitics is the method of getting to the stance on culture, and the stance on culture is that TikTok is not, it's just not the way we want to go. It is the way that people communicate, and we don't want it to be that way of communicating, because we want what we used to have. And what we used to have, once we finally get back there, then we could say that's not what we want. We want to go back even further. Because if it's old, then that means that they were doing something right because we've survived for this long, and anything new is like, what are we doing here now? Why are we sticking with the old methods? It worked for so long. Don't you know that the 80s lasted forever, and that was life on Earth for like 50 years? You expect the fight to continue. Some kind of fight for our attention back. Or at least for some kind of more communicative government. We get protest music in the 60s, and it's some of the most beautiful stuff you've ever heard. You get some of the most beautiful pieces of art America has ever created in the 60s. But there's a caveat. It was because everybody was allowed to take LSD. Not necessarily allowed, but it was culturally allowed. That was allowed because it produced. And then it ruined people's brains. And I'm not advocating for LSD here. I'm pretty anti-drug. But I don't know why people say, I need a reason to be thought-provoking. There needs to be something behind it, like the drugs or the alcohol. And people can't just communicate intuitive ideas that exist in here and on there. It is aesthetic that we crave so much that I think we're reading into wrong. I don't think we look at the purpose of all the things we love from the past as much as we look at the aesthetic of what it was, and that's why edits are our gospel. We scroll constantly through them because we are finally seeing other people within our same line of thought communicate these ideas that we didn't know we had. I don't even know if I'm in focus right now. People are so good at identifying the situation they're in and recognizing their circumstance, but still doing nothing to change it. And I think that's what edits and TikTok and our culture offers us. It offers us the idea that we're doing something and making a change, whether we are communicating with each other on these ideas on one half or banning TikTok on the other. We are communicating a cultural change in favor of some kind of team or party because we must be divided in order to have some kind of resemblance of purpose in our lives, especially in an age where everything we have to value is up there and not physical. It is a wire running under the ocean. It is not something we can hold in our hands. We're not cracking records over the player, or we're not burning film. We're not reading books, physical books that you can hold in your hand and that accidentally gain stains and you scuff up to make your mark on them. We don't have that. We have a dirty iPad. And through that, we are able to get our fix of culture, but it is aesthetic culture. It is not culture in any way that has a purpose to us. I think the idea that nothing ever happens comes from the concept that we don't have the capability to change our own condition, especially when we can identify it. That we can all sit here stirring in the pot and boiling and be like, well, at least we'll make a good stew, right? Fuck it.